Ever feel like you just can't catch a break? Not even talking about money, really, but
Mm.
just time, energy, like you're running on fumes.
Oh, yeah. We've all been
It's
there.
that scarcity thing,
Yeah.
right? And that's what we're diving into today. Got a couple of really interesting articles. One from Kitz's, always good stuff there.
Always.
And another one that takes a broader look at this whole scarcity idea. So get ready for some serious aha moments as we unpack how our brains basically short circuit when we feel strapped.
It's true. Scarcity does things to your thinking, that's for sure.
The goal here is to not just understand it, but figure out how to use this knowledge to actually make better decisions in our own lives. So to kick things off, I mean, we all know scarcity. On the surface, it's about not having enough, right?
Sure, on the
Yeah.
surface. But it goes so much deeper than that.
That's what's so fascinating. It's not just like Econ 101, supply and demand. These articles are talking about the psychology behind it. It's like, remember that time you had to skip your kids', what was it, the soccer game
Mhm.
because of a deadline at work?
Oof. Yeah, been there. Classic example of how scarcity forces your hand, makes you make those trade-offs. And you don't even realize what you're giving up sometimes until it's too late.
Exactly. It's like your brain goes into survival mode, right? And these researchers, Mullainathan and Shafir, I think they call it scarcity capture, which honestly sounds a little intense, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah, like it's this hostile takeover, but honestly, it's a pretty accurate way to describe it. It's like scarcity hijacks your brain, and suddenly all you can see is that one thing you're lacking.
Tunnel vision.
Exactly. You actually call it tunneling. You're so focused on that one thing, like that deadline, the bigger picture, like, making memories with your kid. It all just fades away.
And hold on, because it gets even crazier. This tunneling, it comes with a nasty little side effect, the bandwidth tax.
Oh, yeah. This is where it gets really interesting. Basically, when you're constantly stressed about what you don't have, could be time, money, whatever, it's like pulling an all-nighter. Remember that feeling after you've been up all night?
Ugh, yeah, totally. You can't think straight.
Exactly. And the research actually shows that scarcity in any form can actually lower your IQ. It becomes harder to focus, to make good decisions, to, function
So it's not just us being dramatic. It has a real impact on our brains,
big time.
which is why understanding this whole thing is so important.
Yeah.
And what's really wild is it's not just about actual physical scarcity, right? Like the article mentions this retired client totally set financially, but always feeling rushed.
Always.
It's not poverty. It's that feeling of time scarcity messing with them.
It's all about perception. Even if you're objectively doing well, just feeling constantly short on time, money, whatever, it triggers the same mental stuff.
Which probably explains why sometimes people make decisions that seem, I don't know, kind of irrational from the outside.
Yeah, like if you've got the means, why not just?
Right, exactly.
But that scarcity mindset, it doesn't always make sense. It can lead to some
Because then you make a bad decision based on that fear, and it just digs you deeper into the scarcity hole.
100%. It's a vicious cycle.
And then it's even harder to make a good decision the next time around. And unfortunately, it feels like there are people out there who are ready to take advantage of that.
Oh, tons.
Think about all those limited time offer emails you get, or those flash sales that make you feel like you'll miss out if you don't buy right this second.
Oh, yeah.
They're playing on that, aren't they? That scarcity capture.
Totally. It's a powerful tactic.
Yeah.
And while sometimes that scarcity-driven competition, it can be good, more innovation, a burst of productivity.
Right.
But a lot of times it leads to, let's just say, not the best outcomes.
So what's the solution? How do we get out of this scarcity trap, this cycle?
Well, that's where these researchers, they bring in this idea of slack. And it's not just about having more of something. It's about having the mental space, that feeling of enough.
Okay, I like that word slack. Give me a visual. What does that feel like? Because we've all had that moment, maybe, after a deadline, when you finally come up for air and you're like, okay, I can actually think straight now.
It's that sense of relief. Yeah, that feeling of, I've got this, even if just for a moment.
I like it, but how do we actually get there when it feels like we're constantly juggling like 5 things at once?
It's not about magically making more time or money appear, right? It's more about shifting how we think and then putting things in place that support that new way of thinking.
Systems. I love a good system. Okay, so it's not about more. It's about,
Being intentional, being strategic.
and that's where this idea of choosing both comes in, right?
Exactly.
Tell me more about that.
So this is where things get really interesting and honestly a little hopeful.
Hopeful. I like the sound of that.
A lot of times when we're stuck in that scarcity mindset, we feel like we have to choose between two things we need.
Right. Like, do I save for retirement or pay off this debt?
Exactly. Or do I spend time with my family or put in the extra hours at work. But what if I told you that you could often choose both?
Wait, seriously? I mean, I want to believe that's possible, but how does that work in real life? It's not like we can just create more time or money out of thin air.
No, no magic involved.
Yeah.
It's about strategy, really, and maybe reframing how we see things. Like the article gives this great example, this client who's stressed about saving for retirement and paying down their debt.
Oh, I know that feeling. It's like you're drowning.
Exactly. But often, just a little guidance can make a world of difference. So let's say this client, they're working with a financial advisor. The advisor can help them see how maybe just by adjusting some spending habits, even small changes there as they chip away at that debt, well, that frees up some cash flow they can put towards savings over time. They're not choosing one or the other. They're finding a way to do both, even if it takes a little longer.
Okay, that makes sense for that example. But what about when it comes to something like, I don't know, the classic time crunch? You know, that work-life balance struggle.
Same principle. We're not talking about adding more hours to the day. It's about using the hours you do have more strategically. Finding those little pockets of slack and making them work for you.
There's that word again. Slack.
Oh,
I'm sensing a theme here, and I like it. So it's not about more. It's about, what? Being smarter about it.
you got it.
Hmm.
Think about those automatic savings plans.
Oh.
Genius, right? You're basically taking the emotion out of it.
Automation's such a powerful tool.
Right. Or what about negotiating a raise? Finding ways to increase your income so you're not always so worried about money.
Which means less stress, which means you can make better decisions about money, and bam, you're breaking the cycle.
Exactly. And it doesn't even have to be big, complicated things. Even just scheduling some slack time into your calendar can be huge.
Ooh, I like that. Like literally blocking it off like you would any other important appointment.
Exactly. You're basically saying, this time is for me to recharge, to think clearly, to make good choices. You're building those buffers into your life instead of just hoping they'll magically appear.
This is so much about mindset, isn't it? Because, I mean, we can free up all the time and money in the world, but if we're still stuck in that scarcity mindset,
Oh, for sure.
we'll just find something else to stress about.
You hit the nail on the head. And that's actually a perfect segue into a really important point. Gratitude.
Yes, I was hoping you'd say that. There's something so powerful about reminding yourself of what you do have, especially when you feel that scarcity spiral starting to pull you in.
It's not just about feeling good, although that's a nice bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Gratitude is like legitimately a secret weapon against scarcity. Because when we focus on what we're grateful for, it literally changes our brain chemistry. We're less reactive to stress. We make better decisions. It's like we're swapping out that fear-based thinking for something way more abundant.
Okay, but to be clear, are we saying that gratitude is going to magically make all our problems disappear? Because if so, sign me up.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? No, it's not magic, but it's probably the closest thing we have to a superpower when it comes to fighting back against scarcity.
Okay, I'm listening.
Because when we're grateful for what we already have, it's easier to see the possibilities, right? To make choices that actually align with what we value. Instead of just reacting out of fear, we're playing to win, not just trying not to lose.
Ooh, I like that. Playing to win, that's a game changer right there.
Right. It's about recognizing that even when resources are limited, our perception of those resources, that's what really matters.
So to recap, for someone listening who's thinking, okay, this is all great, but where do I even start? What's one thing they could try today to create a little bit of that slack in their lives?
Well, they could think about what we talked about earlier and try and be more deliberate about scheduling downtime, Like actually block it off on your calendar. Treat it like an important meeting.
Ooh, yeah, like me time is a real meeting.
Exactly. Or what about that automatic savings plan? Even just $5 or $10 a week.
Whatever you can swing, right?
Exactly. Small steps add up.
Mm.
Or maybe it's just taking a few minutes before bed to write down like 3 things you're grateful for.
Oh, I love that one. It really does help shift your perspective.
It's amazing how much of a difference those little shifts can make. So we've covered a lot of ground here, but I think the big takeaway is scarcity. It's not just about being short on cash. It's this sneaky force that affects all of us.
Oh, for sure. Changes how we think, how we act, without us even realizing it half the time.
And the crazy part is it creates this cycle, right?
Mhm.
That scarcity trap where you make one not so great decision because you're under pressure,
Right.
and it just leads to more scarcity, which leads to more bad decisions.
And we're literally making ourselves dumber in the process, which is terrifying. But the good news is, understanding all of this, like really getting it at a gut level,
Right. That's how we break free.
Awareness is key,
Sure.
because once you see how this whole scarcity thing works, it's like, okay, now I can outsmart it.
Exactly. It's about being proactive, putting those systems and strategies in place to protect yourself.
Right. Make those good decisions now so you don't have to make a stressful decision later.
Love it. Decision-making on autopilot, but in a good way.
Yes, it's like we've been playing the game on hard mode this whole time without realizing it.
Totally.
And now, understanding how our brains work under scarcity, it's like someone handed us the cheat codes.
Love that analogy.
Like next time I see a limited time offer, I'm going to stop and ask myself, wait a minute, do I actually need this, or am I just feeling that scarcity capture thing kicking in?
Now you're thinking like a pro.
That's what it's all about, taking this knowledge and actually using it to make better choices in our lives.
100%.
So before we wrap up, let me throw this out to our listeners. Knowing what you now know about scarcity and how it can, really cloud your judgment, how might you approach something like, say, your to-do list a little differently, or that next tempting limited time offer that pops up in your inbox?
Yeah.
What's one small change you could make today to create a little bit of that slack in your life?
It could be anything. Putting your phone on Do Not Disturb for an hour a day so you can actually focus. Meal prepping on Sundays so you're not as tempted to order takeout after a long day.
All great ideas and all totally doable. It's about those small wins.
Exactly. Small wins, big impact.
Couldn't said it better myself. Well, on that note, that's a wrap on another deep dive. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, happy learning, everyone.